relationship had seen twists and turns that did not serve the interests of their countries.
We had a very good, productive session with real concrete outcomes, and it was a real strengthening of the relationship, and that's in the national interest because, of course, there are huge opportunities here in China.
Also this lunchtime, no compensation for the WASPI women fighting over changes to their pensions. Water bills to go up from April will get reaction, and the record-breaking toddler who's nailed his trick shots.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Nina Hossain.
Good afternoon. British citizens will soon be able to travel to China visa-free. A deal has been struck on the first full day of the Prime Minister's own visit to Beijing. Sir Keir Starmer said it will help UK businesses expand into one of the world's economic powerhouses, while also, he said, boosting growth and jobs at home. The trip is not without controversy given national security fears around China and its record on human rights. And this lunchtime, Downing Street said the PM did raise areas of concern with his counterpart. President Xi Jinping admitted relations had been, in his words, through some twists and turns. But Sir Keir says a more sophisticated partnership is now being sought. Our reporter Sam Holder has the latest.
The Forbidden City in China. Long gone are the rules banning outsiders, but until now no British Prime Minister had visited the country for 8 years, reflecting uncertainty over whether China is foe or friend. Today there were small gains for Britain, including 30-day visa-free travel. The real promise is prosperity by granting greater access to the world's second biggest economy.
We made some really good progress on tariffs for whiskey, on visa-free travel to China, and on information exchange and cooperation on irregular migration, focusing particularly on small boats and engine parts. So a very good constructive meeting with real outcomes, and that's very much in our national interest.
Real outcomes is what the Prime Minister needs in the face of widespread security concerns over Chinese spying, hacking and meddling. His trip has faced vocal criticism by the Conservatives, but anything that helps stop small boats will be popular. Beijing says it's offering a strategic partnership, economic benefits all round, and something that will bolster China's international influence.
In previous years, China-UK relations went through some twists and turns. It did not serve the interests of our two countries. Right now, the world is both fluid and turbulent. It is imperative for us to strengthen dialogue and communication.
Implied there, and throughout the meeting, but not mentioned by name, was Donald Trump's influence on global politics and the importance of stability. Military matters are never far from Xi Jinping's calculations. The two leaders' meeting overran by 45 minutes, perhaps a sign of warming relations, and Keir Starmer did raise some thorny issues, including the treatment of the Uyghurs, although with a respectful tone, according to his own team. China is keen to show it is not a foe, but this is not a true friendship yet. Sam Holder, ITV News.
Some breaking news now, and in the last few minutes, a report has been published by Great Ormond Street Hospital into a disgraced surgeon. Yasser Jabbar worked for a period of around 5 years at the London hospital, treating hundreds of children during that time. He now lives abroad but remains under investigation by the General Medical Council. He has not held a licence to practice medicine in the UK since 2024. Back then, a review found his young patients had been left in excruciating pain after what it called inappropriate and unnecessary limb operations. It has now been confirmed that 94 patients had come to harm that was attributable attributable to Mr. Jabbar. Today, the hospital's chief executive apologised.
Yasser Jabbar's practice was completely unacceptable. When families come here, they are anxious, they are worried, they put their trust in Great Ormond Street, and in this case we have breached that trust. I'm deeply and profoundly sorry for all those children and families that have come to harm as a result.
We've heard firsthand from teenage patients of Jabbar. You can read and watch on our website, itv.com/news. Women who say they were wronged by the way changes to the state pension age were communicated have been denied compensation for a second time. The government's decision not to offer redress was reviewed when new evidence came to light. It showed DWP officials stopped sending out pension letters automatically. But ministers today insisted that most women knew of the changes anyway. Our political correspondent Harry Horton is in Westminster. Harry, a fresh apology but no compensation. Is this the end of the road for the so-called WASPI women?
Well, it certainly looks that way this lunchtime, and it has been a long-running campaign which argues that more than 3.5 million women who were born in the 1950s were not properly informed of changes to their state pension age. Now, almost 2 years ago, the Parliamentary Ombudsman recommended that each of those women should be entitled to up to £3,000 in compensation. But in December 2024, ministers said actually believe that many of those women were aware of these changes through news coverage on TV, radio, and the newspapers. It apologised to the women, but said it wouldn't be pursuing compensation. Then last year, it said new information had come to light. It was reviewing the situation. But today, the Secretary of State has once again said the government will not be pursuing compensation, in part because of the cost of setting up such a scheme.
It would not be practical to set up a compensation scheme to assess conclusively the answers to these questions. As for a flat rate scheme, that would cost up to £10.3 billion and would simply not be right or fair, given it would be paid to the vast majority who were aware of the changes.
Well, the WASPI Women campaign has today said in a statement that the government has demonstrated their utter contempt for 1950s born women. They called this a disgraceful political decision, and they said the campaign will now be taking legal advice.
Harry Horton, thank you. A teenager has pleaded guilty to the murder of 12-year-old Leo Ross. Leo was walking home from school when he was fatally stabbed in Birmingham last year. In a statement released shortly after his death, Leo's family described him as an amazing, kind and loving boy. Water bills across England and Wales are going up again. The average household will see a 5.4% rise, but it varies by area, with some households warned that costs will increase by 13%. And all this despite tens of thousands of customers being left without water in some parts of the country in recent weeks. Our reporter Mahatir Pasha joins me now. How are the utility companies justifying the rises?
Well, I'm sure no customer is going to be happy with this news, but water bills going up in England and Wales, unfortunately for them, has become something of an inevitability, and that's, of course, because the water regulator Ofwat has actually given permission to companies to charge customers billions of pounds over the next 5 years to pay for maintenance and upgrades. Last year did mark the start of that period where the average bill went up by £123. This year, bills are set to rise by £33, pushing that total number up for the average household to £639. And that will come into effect from April the 1st. Now, there are 17 companies across England and Wales that deal with water, so let's just have a closer look at some of them. United Utilities sees the highest rise. That's based in northwest England. Average bills going up by £57 a year there. Interestingly, Thames Water is the lowest rise of just 0.5% or just £3. But important to note, of course, that the bulk of their bill increase was added to last year's hike. And then, of course, there's South East Water, which is putting prices up by 7% or £21. And that's even after 24,000 of its customers were left without drinking water for 2 weeks in Tunbridge Well, given the poor record of some of these companies and the bumper pay bonuses that their executives are entitled to, you can understand why some customers might be frustrated. But the industry insists, in spite of that, the money is needed to fund vital upgrades to secure water supplies, support economic growth, and end sewage entering our rivers and seas.
Mahathir Pasha, thank you very much. Thank you. Next, as the government insists pupils should not have access to phones throughout the school day, one head teacher has told us that should be written into law. In a moment, we'll be speaking to Esther Jai, mother of the murdered teenager Brianna, who says tighter rules could have helped her daughter. First, Romilly Weeks has heard from staff and pupils in Warwickshire, where devices stay locked away. Start of the school day at Harris Academy and time for some last-minute phone scrolling.
Morning, lovely ladies. If you're very smart, can you make sure your phones go in those pouches, please?
Here, phones are now kept in sealed pouches all day, opened with a magnetic security device. It's a policy brought in by the head last May.
You okay, Amelia?
Enforced with spot checks.
Wave that pouch upside down, please. See that they're secure. Okay.
And a surprising level of security.
So, thank you.
This week, the government wrote to heads to emphasise schools should be phone-free in lessons and break times. However, that can mean phones are just kept in bags, and it's not a legal requirement.
If you don't have that legal guidance, it's really difficult as a head to make that decision. So if it's a national ban, every head can make that decision. We've got the backing of the government. That's happening. Job done. Move on to focusing on education.
Spider.
Sitting down with pupils, they told me old school games were back in fashion.
Can't.
So this has changed since the phone ban came in?
Yeah.
Is anybody finding a way around it, or is it pretty much no one
Some
uses
people
their
find
phone?
their way around
Yeah.
it. Yeah, because people have two phones and they bring in their other phone as well.
Yeah, that's pretty sneaky. As the government begins its consultation on whether to follow Australia with a social media ban for under 16s, over the knitting at Crochet Club, they told me they often didn't feel safe online.
Some of my family members, they used to watch, when they was young, they had social media and they would go from watching stuff, normal stuff like Thomas and that stuff when they're young, to go in and watching like really bad stuff. People could like see it and then get really upset and like not go to bed on their own or like not sleep at all. Talking to Year 11, that didn't translate into thinking a total social media ban was the right move.
In schools I get it, but outside of school it's like our time to do what we want.
I feel like you should have some freedom. Maybe a ban at 13 would be more helpful.
Well, the government debates what to do under increasing pressure from parents and Labour backbenchers. The number of pupils here telling us that they might not want to lose all social media, but they do want to feel safer online, should perhaps be a wake-up call. Romilly Weeks, ITV News in Rugby. Joining me now from Warrington is Esther Jai, who now campaigns for social media reform. Thank you for speaking to us. Esther, is tackling what happens in schools the easy bit? Isn't it much harder to control what teenagers are doing and seeing on their phones when they leave the school gates every day?
Exactly, and I hear this from so many parents. Just to say that in September I launched a Phone Free Education campaign where I'm calling on the government for a statutory ban of phones in schools and to provide funding for resources as well. But some of the feedback that I've received from parents is that this is only tackling one part of it, and quite often children come out of schools and they're staring at the phones and they're accessing harmful content on social media. Every time I walk the dogs, it's quite often the school run, and children will be walking along staring at the phones rather than looking up and actually living in the real world. So yeah, it's I've said from the beginning that we need a multi-pronged approach to tackle this huge issue.
Yeah, we all see that. Also, we all do it as well, don't we? We're constantly like that. When you see it, given what your daughter went through, and this is before, as we know, she was tragically murdered, but the way you describe it, her addiction to her phone and the impact that had on her. What's your reaction when you see teenagers just mindlessly scrolling?
I think it's a shame because they're missing out on life. We know that teenagers are spending up to 35 hours a week on their smartphones looking at social media, and this is the equivalent to a full-time job. Social media companies work by making money from our attention, so it's the attention economy, and it's essentially child slave labour. This is without mentioning all of the harmful content that they're having access to as well. It's just, what are they missing out on? What could they be doing with the time that's more productive?
Which we saw a bit of that, didn't we, in that school that we were filming in. Look, you are calling as well for this ban of under-16s to be banned from social media following Australia's lead. How do you respond to those who are concerned it will lead children to the dark web, or that a ban is potentially coming in too fast, or, as we heard from those teenagers, that they don't want that, they want their freedom to explore on socials?
Do you know, I think that we've consulted, people have campaigned for long enough now. I think that we've been campaigning since around 2017, and we know the evidence. We know that social media impacts mental health. I think that, I really do think that it is time that we really act on this. And I speak to people from CAMS, the NHS, who are dealing with young people every day, and they tell me the horror stories that they actually see once that are affected by the online world. And it's time that we really act now.
CAMS being Children's Mental Health Services. Esther Jai, thank you very much for your thoughts and opinions on this ongoing story. Thank you. And we have a special report on this on ITVX, and you can also catch it on tonight's evening news from 6:30. Next, a former football coach who oversaw QPR's youth team during Brooklyn Beckham's days there says the young player would worry him at times. Tony McCall suggested the teenager could become embarrassed over his high profile. He's been interviewed exclusively for a special ITV Tonight programme exploring the fallout after last week's explosive statement. And our arts editor, Nana, joins me now. What did you make of Tony's recollections from his time with the young Brooklyn Beckham?
To be honest, Nina, his recollections are really quite sad. As you say, he's a very experienced coach and a scout. He was at Queen's Park Rangers when Brooklyn was there. Brooklyn was 14, trying to follow in his dad's footsteps, as his brothers have tried to do. And what Tony recalls of that time is a teenager who was embarrassed by having security guards, quite frankly, and really quite shy, quite withdrawn, and in general, someone who was just ill at ease.
He would worry me because we never saw any kind of either massively high emotion or massively low. He's almost like he was at this daze, and I think he was embarrassed at times. There's nothing anyone could have done, and I think maybe his parents were trying to do the right thing, perhaps by stepping back a little bit to try and give him the space. But what can they do? His dad's one of the biggest superstars that's ever lived.
This story, this row, still hitting the headlines, and so many days on, we still haven't heard anything from Brooklyn's parents.
No, we of course have approached them and asked if they want to comment on so many things that are being said about the situation, and so far they haven't said anything publicly. Let's see if anything changes over the coming days and weeks. You know, in 3 weeks' time, Brooklyn's younger brother Cruz will be celebrating his 21st birthday. We know the Beckhams like to throw a birthday party for their kids or for themselves. You know, what is going to happen at that birthday party? It's all going to really kind of emphasise the fact that this family is not what it was, you know, a few years ago, that lineup is incomplete. How can they go to this big family celebration without Brooklyn being there, potentially? It is really very sad, isn't it?
Yeah, really painful. Nina Nana, thank you very much. Thank you. And don't miss Beckham v Beckham, The Price of Fame at 7:30 on ITV1 and at the later time of 10:45 on STV. Santander has said it will close 44 of its branches, putting 291 jobs at risk. The Spanish-based banking giant said they are responding to a sizable shift in customers using digital services, and closing branches will be replaced with community bankers. And Clean Up Britain campaigners say they found the most repulsive road in Britain. The slip road on the A38 in Willington in Derbyshire has become what they call a makeshift bin for drivers. The National Highways Agency says it's the responsibility of the council, who have so far not commented. And finally, meet the toddler with a world-beating talent for snooker. Jude Owens from Manchester has picked up not one but two Guinness records, and all before his 3rd birthday. He may sometimes struggle to reach the table, but what he lacks in stature, he more than makes up for in ability, and he has become the youngest person to perform a pair of trick shots. Faye Barker reports.
A piece of pint-sized pocketing perfection. Snooker prodigy Jude Owens' ability with a cue has made him a double world record holder as the youngest person to perform 2 trick shots. His first record was for this snooker double pot in September, aged 2 years and 261 days old. 41 days later, he did it again with a perfect pool bank shot. Dad Luke is a keen player himself.
I'd like to think it's in the genes, but obviously Jude started a lot younger than me. I started playing when I was 10, and obviously Jude started playing when he was 2, but I'd say Jude's got a lot more natural ability than myself.
Jude started off on tiny tables and has progressed to those he can barely see over the top of. And it's perhaps only just a matter of time before Jude will be beating his dad.
Who would win a snooker match, me or you?
Me.
No, me?
No, me.
No, me?
No, me.
He's had his first big break, and don't be surprised to see much more from little Jude. Faye Barker, ITV News.
What a shot. That's all from us for now. Charlene will be here with the evening news at 6:30. The news where you are is next. From everybody on the Lunchtime team, bye-bye.